Welcome back. This is the video for the HUD, the HUD, the Housing and Urban Development Certificates for Manufactured Mobile Housing, mobile homes. In this video, we're going to teach you a little bit about the technical. We're going to teach you how to use the app and what to gather. And we'll teach you a little bit about marketing the service, and we'll just talk in general about these certificates and what they are. So to start off, we will show you, let me show you our sample. We did this previously, but the HUD report is just a small report. It's got an executive summary that basically says that it is habitable first, safe, habitable and safe, and second, that it meets these guidelines, the PFMGH, the Permanent Foundations Guide for Manufactured Housing. If you look, we like to document, who was there, observations, provide a conclusion. We do a lot of limitations in liability to protect ourselves. And then this is in Appendix A, is the Certificate of HUD Compliance. Anytime a VA is going to get a loan for a mobile home, they're going to be required to provide one of these certificates. Sometimes the bank will allow the certificate to stand as proof that it meets the standards. We specifically say here that it does. Sometimes they want the full report. So you might, if you're talking with your client, you may let them know that, hey, provide the certificate first. And if that's good enough, then you can provide, if that's good enough, then you won't have to provide the full report. The full report is fine. Sometimes we get into specific requirements of language, like they want it to say something a little bit more specific about that mobile home that we're not stating. And so if you can alleviate the requirement of providing the full report, the certificate is oftentimes a good standalone that will get them through the VA, your client, through the underwriting process of the loan. To talk about the template, so here's the deal. You book a HUD inspection. You're going to go out there and perform. You are going to want to try to get your client to book a home inspection too. Some of our partners are kind of like, they're worried about the mobile home aspect of doing a home inspection. But the reality is that if you get into the groove of them, they're really not any different than a typical home. Sometimes you have to further explore where the water heater is. It's behind a panel. Sometimes the electric panel is a little bit different. And usually there's no attic, and sometimes you can't get on the roof. So they're actually fairly simple from a home inspection side. From the HUD side, they're just as simple. We're not looking at a lot of the same things and nor the same standards you would for a home inspector. We are specifically concerned about the structure. So when we go through the HUD template, just know that I, as the engineer, am worried only about the structural elements of the mobile home, whether or not I feel that it's safe to occupy from a structural standpoint, not from a plumbing, not from electrical, not from an HVAC standpoint, simply the structural side. So most of the documentation you're going to be providing is in the crawl space, which makes sense. So I'm going to turn it back to our app. And just like I did with the EFE, I will tell you that this is the web version of our app. It's very important you understand that, because you can complete a project through this, but you probably never will. This is great for me sharing my screen and showing you the process, but the iPhone version or the Android version of the app, it is faster. It is obviously works a lot better on your phone, and it's not through a web portal where you can lose images if you're adding them and then you have a brief outage of internet, things like that. The web version, the iPhone version and the Android version, you can work offline. If you're under a crawl space or something, it's going to continue to work for you. So what you see here is not what I want you to use, but is good enough for demonstration of what we're going to be doing, because it follows the project portal exactly. Once you open up your phone, you're going to see something that looks like this. You'll have 4 buttons at the bottom. I did a video that will go over kind of the app layout and some of the options here, but we're just going to go over the HUD right now. So I'm going to add a project, and I'm going to start by typing the address. I'll just use my address. Once you have the address, you hit create project. That's all you need to create a project, and really all you need is the address, and it's going to assign you a project number that you'll use. But it's going to bring you to this screen, and this screen is going to give you all of the options available to you as a partner for adding. You're going to add the HUD, the FHA Engineering Evaluation for Manufactured Homes. And you'll see that it will pull this into the active portion of our screen. And you're going to click on the reports. Now, a little bit about this, you'll see the inspection date. If it's not today, you may want to schedule the date. If you're an admin or you're scheduling this for an inspector, then it may be in a few days. And so you'll schedule that date. The price will be locked, but if there's any changes needed, just email us and we can change the price. I wouldn't worry too much about that. On all of our reports, just like everything, we're just letting you know here, we're not collecting the money. You don't have to pay before you submit. You know, you're a partner, you're not a customer, and so we trust that you'll pay us. You know, some clients, you know, sometimes we're just very flexible on this. So get us payment when you can. The HUD report is right here, and then the support documents. I'm going to go over the report in a second, but first the support documents. We do want you to provide us with any documents that would help us to identify issues with the inspection. If you want to give us your property inspection report because it has visuals on it, great. We can go through that. If you want to give us the seller's disclosure form because it's sitting on the kitchen countertop and it has foundation elements in it, great. If you have the design drawings of the pad site, great. Provide it to us, and you're going to provide it here. Sometimes, like we showed in the EFE, sometimes there'll be a little red star here. It means that we need that to complete the project. A good example of that is the EIR, the Engineer's Inspection Review. That requires us to have the inspection report because we're providing an engineering opinion about it. And so we need it. You need to upload it before we even start the process. So in this case, if you don't want to give it to us, fine. You can click Add Document. There's a lot of other documents that are kind of boilerplate or auto-filled here, and you can add a custom document here, tell us the name, and upload the document. If you go into this report section, you're going to see that it pops up as basically two sections. Project details are very, very obvious. We're going to, I'm going to fill this in, but obviously it's very self-explanatory for any home inspector or any partner. So client name. If you click on other, you will be able to type another person, contractor. We want to know the year that it was built, and we'll talk about the manufacturer's tag in a little bit. That will get you some of that information. How many square feet? And on these, you're always going to select mobile manufactured home for the type and style. And then if it was furnished or not. Give us your, the weather, self-explanatory. And then the foundation type is typically block, pier, and beam for these. There are a few cases with manufactured home where you have a concrete stem wall skirt. And I'm going to talk a little bit about the not being fooled by an aesthetic skirt, which is like, a brick facade or some kind of concrete wall that's not attached to the underlying substructure. But a concrete stem wall skirt would be if you have literally a brick wall, almost like a basement wall that's built, and then the mobile home is sitting on top of it. Very, very rare to have this, and I'll explain that later. But okay, block, pier, and beam. Usually there's not a second foundation type. The only example that there would be is that, let's say there's like another structure off to the side, like an addition that we see. Usually that can be another pier and beam section. We would want to call that out as a separate foundation, or it could be a slab home with a mobile home on the back. We leave room for all of these various types of situations. Owner occupancy. We do want you to have a brief discussion with the owner if he's available. So he or she. If they're there, we would like you to go up to them and just say, hey, we are doing a foundation investigation. Not a big deal, but are you aware of any other previous foundation work? We will document this in our report. If they're not aware, great. If they're not available, fine. If they do provide you with a seller's disclosure form or something, then you're going to want to put that here and attach it to the support. It even says here to attach it to the support document section that I went over in the previous page. That's project details. We'll move on to the HUD mobile manufactured portion, which is the more technical side. The first is HUD, the manufacturer's information. The manufacturer's tag is typically found, if I'm looking at the mobile home, I usually find it on the back left corner. Not always. Sometimes it is on the metal chassis, and sometimes it's on an interior data sheet or like near the electric panel. It usually looks like this. It's a red tag, red text, and it's kind of galvanized, and it's got it almost has like a texture to it. The text does. This will tell you this number here, and that's the number that you can look up if you want to from the database, the year of manufacture, if you can't find it anywhere. So, and I can show you what website you go to for that. Oops. Where was I? Oh, back here. Okay. Oh, I'm sorry. I was back on our template. Nope, that's not it. Here. So you're going to take a picture of the tag and tell us where you found it. Once you enable one of these checkboxes, you'll see the picture thing point enable here. And if you're not on a computer, you'll see right here another box that says camera, take a photo. So because you're in the web app version and not on the mobile phone version, you do not have that button here. You can view the photos. You can annotate the photos like on any of our reports. And then if you want to edit this information in here, you click details and you can edit some of the information in this form. Probably need to do some spell checking in these. Okay. Go back. I'll make a note to spell check that. Okay. Photos of the crawl space. Traditional pier and block and beam is typically what you're going to be looking for. Sometimes you have these screw jacks, which is still a pier and beam system, but you've got screw jacks. Sometimes they're on concrete piers. Sometimes they're sitting on the ground. Sometimes they're on a sleeper slab. And so if you see these things, then you know that these are a little bit different than the traditional CMU blocks with the wedges and the traditional way that you typically find these. The other one is a perimeter skirt foundation. That is a very uncommon form, but we have seen it where they build you build almost like a basement wall, CMU block wall. You put beams across it, typically wood beams for support of the chassis, and then then the mobile home sits on top of it. Very odd situation, and in that case, you have lateral uplift support because they're bolting that chassis to the perimeter skirt wall, and so it's just kind of an odd situation. I doubt you're going to find it, and we don't need to spend a lot of time on it. Just know that traditionally you're going to see pier and beam 99% of the time, and you'll go with that. We do want you to take just general crawl space photos. Let's talk now about what I need you to gather for me to be confident in the information that you're providing. As the engineer, it's the most important element is the crawl space and the support structure, the support system. That's kind of what, for all intents and purposes, that's what I'm stamping, that it meets the regulation. So if there's a perimeter skirting and you are unable to access a lot of the system, then I'm not really going to be able to approve the drawing. I'm not going to be able to approve the report. So you'll learn that as you book these, you're going to want to call the agent, selling agent, and or the owner to ask them, where do I access the crawl space? And if I can't access the crawl space, will you please give me access? If that requires you cutting a hole in it, fine. Typically, there are a lot of different types of skirting. If it's a lattice work skirting, then you can usually take photos, walk around, and get enough good photos where you don't have to physically crawl underneath. They're usually not that wide, and so through that way, you can take good photos of the various elements that we need if you're good at that. If you're dealing with a PVC skirting, so the PVC skirting, it will get brittle and break. So you need to be careful with it, and you typically would want to ask permission to take it apart, but you're going to want the seller to do it if they can do it instead. You'll get familiar with how it attaches. It requires a lot of force in the right direction, kind of like taking a dashboard off a truck, if you've ever done that, or something where you've got to really get the exact twist method in, and then it'll come apart, and then you can access the underside, the crawl space from there. We basically, I don't really want to put a number to it, but I think that I will say that if you can access more than half of the crawl space and give me good photos of of the strapping and the piers and everything, then that's probably sufficient. There's not a specific number, but as the quality secure that we're dealing with a quality foundation that's not going to be of harm to the occupant. So for me, around that 50, 60, 75% threshold, I feel significantly better about what I'm not seeing, or what's not accessible, behind some area that you can't access or get good photos of. So use that as a rule of thumb, just knowing that I'm going to look heavily at the quality of the system, and I can approve a system that doesn't conform to a brand new, pier every 10 foot, beautifully looking blocks, brand new sleeper slab, and the ties every 5 feet. I'll approve something that like a lot of times we run into insulation falling down and piping that just looks strewn, and just a big old mess under there. That's fine as long as I feel like the support structure is okay. I'm not there to critique the pipes and the insulation and all that other stuff. Clearly you want to let the client know about it, but I need to look at whether or not this thing is going to fall over in the event of a hurricane, or hurricane force winds, or just someone living in it. I mean, the occupants' live load. And so I just need to be confident that what we're looking at is secure. So give me good photos, general photos, and I'll be happy. The anchoring system is the most important element to what we're going to be looking at. To be quite frank with you, if I don't see a good anchoring system, then I fail it. I can't, in good conscience, kind of, especially without the manufacturer's plans and without their intention, because we as the engineer just are not going to have access to that information. I don't really know what the guidelines were when they put it in. So I'm kind of, as the engineer, in some ways, making sure that we have enough factor of safety that I feel good about it. And so with lateral restraint system and with the uplift requirements, I need to feel good that there's enough strapping. For those that are new to this, the uplift strapping is so that when a hurricane comes through and tries to lift the structure up off the ground, or mostly blow it over, the metal strapping is going to hold it to the ground, and really hold it not to the ground, but to its piers, to its foundation. They consider that a permanent fixed foundation, and we're going to be looking for these lateral restraint systems. There are a few different types that are fine. Mainly metal straps. So you're going to look for strapping, which is typically a soil screw that's been screwed into the ground, and a metal strap that looks like a giant twisty tie, giant, what do you call those things? Giant, what are those called? Those plastic ties. They look a little like that, and we're going to want to make sure that they're present, that they're tight, and that there's sufficient quantity. I get the question all the time, well, what's the sufficient quantity? Well, the sufficient quantity, according to me, is I go off of the manufacturer's recommended quantity. Well, then you go, well, Phil, you don't even know, the manufacturer, and there's all this discussion, there's all this talk back and forth about, well, can I even look up what the manufacturer's requirements are? And the answer kind of is, well, not really. So what I want to know is whether or not, based on the guidelines, whether or not I feel as the engineer there is sufficient quantity, knowing and comparing to the hundreds, if not thousands, of other mobile homes I've looked at. So it's a bit of an art. It has to be, because there's not a good way to access this information. We're definitely not going to redesign it. That's a lot of work. And so this is I would say this is the generally accepted method for an engineer's determination of whether or not there's enough restraint. And what I go off of, and what most engineers go off of, is, we want to see them every 10 feet. We want to see them on the corners specifically. And if there's some loose, or if they're every 15 feet, we kind of weigh in on the size, the type of piering, the lattice structure, or the skirt system. We weigh all that into consideration, and then we make a determination. So and nobody really likes that answer, but we just need to show, I need to show and feel confident that the system meets the guidelines or exceeds them. And so those kind of a little bit nebulous, but more so me telling you, those kind of guidelines are what I'm going to go off of. Soil screws are, again, the most common, the metal straps. The rigid lateral cross bracing is a kind of a newer system. It's called a tieback system because it is and sometimes you see this with straps too, but you'll see a cross brace that will go from a part of the the part of the mobile home chassis system down to the bottom of a pier. And you can see those in a more of a strap system. You can see them in an actual rigid bar system, and there's usually two of them originating from one specific point. So you're going to see, it's going to look like an X or a K, an actual cross brace. Dead man anchors are when they actually pour a concrete footing and they put in metal loops and they anchor to that. That's fine too. That's very uncommon, but we've seen it. And a concrete sleeper slab anchor is going to be an entire slab. Sometimes you'll come into a very beautiful, almost like a basement of a mobile home, and that's a sleeper slab. It's not typically, it doesn't have the requirements on the footings. It's not going to be, it's not going to have a lot. They call it a sleeper slab because it's going to be like it's going to be like a driveway. It's maybe 4 inches. It's not a whole lot of concrete, but it cleans it up. It makes it look nice, and it allows for you to anchor to it. So now you've got anchors into the full sleeper slab. That's fine. Through bolt to skirt foundation is extremely rare, but it is the same situation I talked about where you have a skirt stem wall foundation like a basement, and we are through bolting. So from that basement, you'll see through bolts through the usually not the stem wall itself, because you got the chassis. So it would be through the beams, the wooden beams or the metal beams that you see that's sitting on the skirt wall. And those are what is preventing the mobile home from uplift. They also are usually smaller, and we're less concerned about them because you have a skirt wall, and so the wind can't get underneath it. We're talking about now, something blowing it over, and so through bolts is a valid method. Again, we're going to want you to take pictures of some of the through bolts, make sure they're not rusted out, there's sufficient quantity, and I like to see a 1/2 inch bolt at least, but but at least a sufficient amount where I feel like it meets the requirements. The wheel and tongue, this is for the client's purpose typically, but sometimes there's wheels under there and the tongue is there, and so just make a determination if you can see it and find it. Sometimes it's also disconnected, so wheels missing. Let's see. I thought there was one called disconnected, but no, I don't have that there. But if it's present, it's present. Sometimes they'll unbolt it and they'll leave it underneath the mobile home. We want to know, is it a single wide, a double wide, modular homes and tiny homes? This is a good place to talk about this. Mobile manufactured homes by the VA has a specific requirement. And it makes sense because if you live in an area where you have a residential code and you have an enforcement agency, and that agency comes in and they do inspection work and they say, your piping looks good, your electrical looks good, your HVAC looks good, and your foundation looks good, and they do the inspection process. Well, if you're going to wheel in a house, they want to know, does it meet our standard? And typically what a municipality will do, a city, a county, they'll say, if it has the if it meets the standard for mobile homes, which has a specific standard, then we'll approve it. It's not necessarily the residential, the IRC, the residential code for that municipality, but it's a code that meets or exceeds that code, or they're allowing for a variance for this mobile home. If there are situations where this gets a bit weird. Someone wheels in a tiny home into their backyard and the VA requires a certificate like this, we will issue a certificate. It doesn't mean it was permitted, and it doesn't mean that it meets residential standards. It doesn't, my license and my certification or my stamp and seal does not say that this thing was built legally, it was permitted, things like that. If it doesn't have a tag on it, we'll still give you a certificate. It will say that we couldn't find a tag, and that's okay. And to the VA, usually that's okay also. But just know that it may not have undergone the rigorous standards of a mobile home, of the mobile home agency that provides the permitting, provides the tags, the certification. And so you may want to point out to your client that it doesn't have one. They also, sometimes the bank will mistake even just a normal home as a manufactured home. And so sometimes we've had requests from clients where they say, look, I know this isn't a mobile home, but I need this certificate or the bank's not going to give us the loan. We'll do that also. It's no big deal. I will certify that it meets the standards, even though it may not be specifically a mobile home, because I'm not certifying that it is a mobile home. I'm certifying that it is structurally sound. So we're okay with then issuing a certificate and indicating that it doesn't have a tag. There's no problem with that. So let me know what it is. And modular homes are becoming more popular. These homes that are in the storage units. But someone can't just, especially in a city, people think they can just wheel these houses in. And if you're in a city, if you're in the county, or even like in the ETJ of a county that's going to be acquired by a city soon, there's going to be a building department, and the building department is going to have structural requirements. And if they do, they're going to tell you that you can't do this. RVs are the same way. We could get into the whole discussion about this, but RVs generally, if you hook up to the septic or the sewer system, then it is considered a permanent house, and it has to meet the requirements of the city, which means that it has to have one of these tags. And there's a lot of requirements on that. Some areas you can't have a mobile home be put, that's a totally different thing. Well, cities, some cities will allow you to have one of these, but then they won't allow you to put it in certain areas, certain residential areas. So just know, I think I've said it a lot, but just know that this is a question we get a lot from the client, and it's not one that you necessarily have to answer or need to answer, or that we can't provide the certificate for. We can. You need to let them know that, hey, you might want to check to make sure if it doesn't have this tag, you might want to check to make sure that it is permittable and legal and everything else. I ask for general exterior photos because sometimes I get reports that are just very zoomed in. Like I got a pier, a strap. Like I don't even know what this thing looks like. So I want you to walk the outside and just take 4, 5, 6 photos of the exterior so I can like put my head on what we're looking at. Perimeter skirt wall present means that we have a skirt wall and it's non-structural. So sometimes we come across a brick veneer on a CMU wall, or even a brick wall on its own footing, but the mobile home is not attached to it. So this specifically says it's that this is a load-bearing foundation system. I'm sorry, it's not. The skirt wall is not intended to provide primary structural support to the structure unless it's designed and documented as a load-bearing foundation system. So I want you to tell me whether or not you feel that the perimeter skirt wall is structural in any way. Is it supporting the mobile home in any way? Because 99% of the time it's not, and it is a facade. They try to make the mobile home look a little bit more fancy by adding the brick or rock wall underneath. And it may be touching the structure, but it's usually not helping to support it. The add-ons is a longer discussion, so let's get into that. The structural add-ons are they're interesting. The structural add-ons have to support themselves by themselves, and that's the easiest way to say it. If you were to envision you filling up a hot tub on the front patio, we want to know that the porch is going to support the hot tub and not the mobile home itself. The reason is that people like to pile on add-ons to their mobile home, and then a storm comes through and the weight of the add-ons, two things, the weight of the add-ons puts the foundation in a compromising position, or the wind around the add-ons pulls and pushes, or even will help to push, like a roof or awning structure, help to push the mobile home over. And so we need to document the structural add-ons, and you're going to do that here. So you're going to walk around. If there's a staircase, you're going to take a picture. If there's a porch, a deck, an awning, you're going to take a picture. And that's where we do that here. The deficiency comes in. So if you scroll down to deficiency, you'll see the structural dependence deficiencies. This is when the add-on is structurally dependent, meaning that the add-on is supported by the mobile home and does not appear to be independent of the foundation system of the mobile home. This is typically by a ledger board or some kind of board that's nailed or tacked or bolted to the mobile home. And then off of that comes the deck, or off of that comes the awning. What we would like to see instead is a column put up next to the mobile home, and then that being by which a board is installed, and then the structure tied to that. You can identify structurally dependent add-ons by typically noting or looking at the area right next to the mobile home, which will have a column or a post. So you walk up to a deck that's in front of the mobile home. If you see a column next to the mobile home, series of columns supporting it right next to there, then we would call that structurally independent. If instead you see the porch mounted to the physically mounted to the mobile home, then we would like you to note that as a deficiency. Essentially, that you have right here a structural deficiency or a dependency from the mobile home onto the structure. When I get down there, I'm going to talk about when we are okay with having the having the dependency, and I'll still approve the HUD, but that's a different subject. So let's get through this first, the limitations. Sorry, the comments. So we ask you to check this if there's no indication that the structure's been moved. And in fact, if you click on this details, you'll see that we provide this website, ibts.org. This website is where the client, we don't do it for them, they can look up the label verification using the number, and they can see information about the manufactured home, like when it was built, where it was moved to. And I forget the stat, but it's like 80 something percent, 87% of mobile homes never move the first time. So it's actually a pretty staggering figure. And so if it has been moved, then, the client's going to want to know about that, maybe re-register it, things like that. But that website is there to help the client determine if it's been moved around a lot. Okay, we went back to, date of manufacture, the year. We want you to look up the year if you can find it. If you can't find it, no big deal. It's sometimes we'll say it on there's a tag on the inside of the mobile home near the electric panel. It will have it there sometimes, and it will have it. It may have it on the tag. Some of the tags have the year on them. Usually not the red ones, but some of them do. So you can look it up there. Limitations. We kind of would like you to check this general limitations and HUD engineering evaluation. In the future, we're supposed to have these auto enabled, and I'm sorry, we'll get there, but the little red star means that they're required. So you would want to check those. That's just general limitations indicating that, hey, this is based on the information available to us, and the HUD engineering evaluation is to tell the client that this is not your engineering report, that a engineering evaluation is pending, and that we're going to give them that next. Sometimes the client will get this version, like a PDF of our output, and they'll think that's their report. They'll give it to the bank. The bank will say, this isn't stamped by an engineer, yada, yada. So this is not, that's just telling them this report is the appendice of the report. Limited crawl space access. We want you to check that if you can't get to some of the areas. That's pretty clear. And then we get to the list of deficiencies. I'm not going to spend a lot of time on these because they're pretty self-explanatory, but we're going to go over the kind of the categories. Tie downs are the main focus of deficiencies, because if they're loose, if they're damaged, if they're missing, I think there's missing down here, then we want you to note that to us and take pictures of it. And then we will make a determination whether or not the deficiencies add up to enough to warrant failing or not passing the HUD certificate. One loose strap, when there's 25 of them, we're probably going to pass it. But what that means is that I don't want the partner to take on that liability. That's my determination as the engineer. So kind of the workload goes that you report things you see, and then I'll make a determination as to whether or not they are material enough to pass or fail. So you see a loose strap, you take a picture. Don't try to manipulate's the wrong word, but you don't need to try to spin the report to try to get it to pass because you want the client to pass. Not that you would, but it's like, I will pass things even though there's deficiencies by noting and making limitation statements that making legalese statements or what is the term? By making clarification statements that basically say, although one tie down is loose, we think that's insignificant considering the rest of them appear to be tight, we'll pass it. That gets us to the discussion about structural dependence, because, by definition, a structural dependence would be anything nailed to the mobile home whatsoever that's not from the manufacturer. And that gets into, what is significant? And so, if you have two wooden steps up to a mobile home door and it's leaning on the mobile home, is that considered a structural dependency? I guess by full definition, it's adding weight to the structure, and therefore it's adding that the mobile home is, it's not structurally independent. The staircase is not structurally independent. And so, in theory, I could fail it. But what we've kind of determined is that there are limitations to that, and I can very easily document that although there appears to be a structural dependency, we consider the weight and of the item, of the add-on, to be insignificant. And so, structurally, so the way, I will fail structurally dependent add-ons all the time. Not all the time, but it's like I kind of have to make a determination whether or not I find something to be structurally independent or dependent. And even though it's may be dependent on the mobile home, I have to then determine whether or not it's negligible in consideration of the entire structure and what I'm seeing, or whether or not I would like someone to go actually make it structurally independent. The porching and decking for me is a lot easier to justify having it be structurally dependent and still pass it, because a lot of that stuff is cantilevered, which it means that a lot of the decking may transfer to multiple posts, and therefore you pushing a 16-foot board that's supported in 4 places over another 4 feet and attaching it to the mobile home is really quite structurally independent in itself. If you were to remove the mobile home, would it still be standing there? Well, yeah, probably. So a lot of that we can work through. The biggest offender of this where we fail is awnings, because awnings are up high. They're much more likely to catch wind and to push weight and to blow the mobile home over. And so, if you got a 16-foot awning and it's attached with the ledger board and bolted to the mobile home, and it doesn't have any type of structural support on that edge, it's literally weight on the mobile home and wind load on the mobile home, then it's much more likely that we fail that because of that dependency. We would like to see, and you can install, if we fail, we show the client, I'll probably bring that up again, but we show the client a drawing of where they fail and what will establish independence. And so this one, I think, is a hard one for the inspector to kind of make sure that it's independent. But here's the deal. If you think that it's dependent, in other words, that there's a problem and there's a deficiency and it's leaning on the mobile home, then tag this, take a picture, and make a lot of documentation. And then I, as the engineer, will determine, is it truly independent or dependent, and is the weight or is it negligible in consideration of all of the structural add-ons and the mobile home itself and the foundation type and quality and things that I see. That is, we've said a lot, but that is kind of where I want you to go with this when you're thinking about these 2 deficiencies. Support system is another one. So when you go under the mobile home, if you see tilted blocks, if you see, like here, a tilting leaning, if you see a pier that's not making contact, or if you see rusted out or rotted out support system, we need you to tell us about that so that can be addressed. Sagging area is often common too. You usually can feel this when you're walking the home. You don't always have to go in the home to do these. And sometimes if you're only doing this certificate, you may not want to go in the house. But if you can, it's good to walk around the home, because you can feel the areas that may be sagging and lacking sufficient support. And so, if the chassis needs more support, then we want you to tag this and indicate through photos where that support may need to be. I will say that if you were to do an EFE, Engineers Foundation Evaluation, on a mobile home, and we do these sometimes, they usually fail. They are all over the place. they're not real. If you go into a mobile home and you're familiar with them, you're not, they're not meant to be perfectly flat. They're not meant for you to not kind of feel that you're in a mobile home. You know, you might walk up a little hill, go into the living room, and then down a little hill down to the kitchen. I mean, I say that facetiously in some ways, but the reality is that the mobile homes are a little like 1920s bungalows that are pier and beam, you know, like, it's almost, it's the character and the nature of that type of structure. And so you have to respect and understand that if you do an EFE on this, it can kind of be an alarmist form of telling the client that they are outside of the normal bounds, you know, into the normal industry standard, because they're going to fail in tilt and deflection and all the things that we've talked about before. So just know that with a mobile home, it's, you know, if you want us to do an EFE or identify foundation related problems, that's fine. We'll do it. We will try to, we definitely, downplay is not the right word as an engineer, but it's like we're going to try to we're going to use all the information that we have to determine whether or not we think there's a real problem, and then whether or not they need more support or they need to re-level the structure. And you can always provide them with the elevations, and they can kind of determine what they think as they walk the structure, but it's a little bit different than that. Tie downs missing are going to be a one that we use a lot. And I'm sorry, these are out of order, and we already know they are, so we're going to put them in order. But the anchors are missing, loose. If tie downs are missing, then we just can't approve it. You know, one missing when they're spaced every 10 feet, we'll probably, you know, that's probably something we can justify. But tie downs are one of the more important elements of a mobile home, and they're the structural dangerousness of doing this kind of work. We do not want a hurricane blowing down a mobile home, and then, you know, some of this other stuff may be comparatively not immaterial, but comparatively a lower priority or severity than tie downs. Tie downs are very important, and if without them, a mobile home can blow over. And I've seen mobile homes do that before. So anyways, that is the HUD. I don't think there's anything else that we were going to talk about, but I don't know. Let's continue. Let's make sure we finalize. So tag deficiencies, click back. This button will then, if it doesn't turn orange, then it will validate and it'll tell you where we need the items. And so you can go back in here, in the areas where there are red, it's going to ask you to fill those out to be able to submit and finalize. See, it'll turn orange, hit finalize, and finalize. Once the report is finalized, then it's just finalized. It's not submitted. That's an important factor here. And why is it not submitted? Well, because we don't know if you've given us all the data that we need. We need support documents in this case, possibly. In this case, I don't have a property inspection report. There's nothing else to provide, so I can go ahead and submit. With the EFE, you know, like we talked about, there will be support documents. We need to get those from you. If there's foundation work that's been done and you know that there's a document that shows what's been done, then you would attach it here. And we beat a dead horse with this, and then you would submit. So submit it. It's going to be submitted, and then you'll see that you put a date here, and it'll tell you that it's under review. That sends it to my team to start working on getting us the report done. And with HUDs, we do a 1 business day turnaround. It's 5:38 right now, so clearly you're not getting it today. But what we tell you is that, like, for our team, if you have an 8 o'clock inspection and you get it to me by 11, 12 o'clock, we'll typically be able to turn it around the same day. If it's your second inspection of the day, you know, your 1 o'clock, then we probably can't, and we'll probably give it to you in the morning sometime, so you can tell the client that. I remember what I was going to say. The last thing is, and this is important, if we fail it, number one, we're going to give you a drawing that shows how it needs to look to pass it, not you, but your client, so that they're not like going, well, you failed this, but what do I do? Usually we fail from the strapping not being good enough, and the strapping, there are contractors that do that a lot. There's a lot of contractors that know how to do that. It sounds like a weird thing, but they're good. They're just Google a contractor and they'll be available. The other thing is the structural dependency thing. That one's a little bit more complicated for an agent or a client to understand. They also don't like it because it's a waste of money, they feel. And so the typical remedy is to get a 4x4 post and to reestablish independence by putting that 4x4 near the structure and tying it in with whatever we're trying to reestablish independence with, whether that be the porch or an awning or a staircase or whatever it is. That one's a little bit more difficult, but give them the drawing, then you can talk them through it. The last thing is that when you fail, the client usually wants to pass and they don't want to pay anything, and they're already upset because they had to install something that they didn't want or know that they had to install. Noble does complimentary reinspection reports, but that doesn't mean that you have to go reinspect it for free. We feel confident that if you can give us good, sufficient photos or the client can give us good, sufficient photos, we are okay with passing it. If I know, sometimes they'll give me the receipt of the contractor that performed it and photos of what he did. Usually that's sufficient. If you as the inspector would prefer to go back out there to get trip fee and to doubly confirm that the work is done right, that we're fine with that too. But that is the one area where I think Noble, it's hard. Like, some partners don't want to be the middleman and want me to handle it with their client, and we'll do that. Some would like to maintain that involvement for this exact case. They want to go back out. So I just have some patience with us as we try to work through that with your team. Before we get to know you and your personality and what what y'all's company likes and how to handle those, it may be a trial and error. My preference is to just get it from the client, reissue the certificate, because that's the quickest, easiest, and that's the cheapest way to do it. And because the changes are really on me liability wise. If you don't want that, then just make it noted. And if it ever happens, tell us again, and then we'll start to know and recognize that, oh wait, that's right. No, this company wants to go back out and to take a look and document the changes, and then you can give us those changes back as a reinspection report. We're very happy about that. That's it's no cost difference to us because we do them complimentary for you. So if you want to do that, just make it clear, and we'll try our best to make that happen. Notes, you can add notes just to the project. If you know something's wrong, please let us know. If if the client is ornery and they have complained many times, let us know, and then we can try to facilitate a solution for you. You can take notes in any way. If you go back, you'll see the project here. Sorry, back here. You'll see the project here. It says under review, meaning that you've given it to us. And just like I told you before from the other video, this will stay here in active projects until it has been published, given to you, and paid for, and then it will go under the complete button over here. That's it for today. Appreciate you. Let us know if you have any questions, and see you on the next video. Thanks.